Hey guys, in this video I'll be showing you guys how to create a Discord bot using TypeScript. If you get stuck or you just want the source code, you can find the source code down in the description below. So yeah, without further ado, let's just start this tutorial. So first thing, I have my terminal currently at document/YouTube, and let's just create a new folder. So you can do that by doing mkdir TypeScript bot. Alright, so let's just go into that folder real quick. We can just run npm init-y to initialize our project. Alright, and then if I open the code right now, open it in registerCommands. If I click on package.json, you can see that we have our package.json. Alright, so once this is done, we need to install some dependencies. So let's just quickly do that. Let's just run npm I discord.js .env and glob. And after that, we're going to install some dev dependencies for TypeScript. Alright, so npm I -D, we can have add types glob, add types node, ts node dev, and lastly we have TypeScript because we are using TypeScript. Alright, so once we are done with this, we will be writing out our own scripts in package.json. Just go back to package.json and let's just write some scripts. So in here, you can just remove this. We're gonna write our first start script. It's gonna be ts node src/index.ts. ts node is a way to run TypeScript code without actually compiling it. It's actually transpiling the code and then running it. Alright, so we're gonna have our start dev. So basically it's ts node dev, same thing, src/index.ts. Alright, so the differences between ts node and ts node dev is ts node dev is run every time the file changes. So for example, you save a file, the process is going to be reran. Okay, next script we can have is the start prod script, which stands for production. So in this case, we're just going to run node index.js. So all of the files in TypeScript that is located in source will be compiled into the this folder. I'll show you guys what I mean later on this video when I compile the code. And then lastly, we can have our build and our watch script. So tsc is our build script. So this is how we compile our TypeScript code into JavaScript. And then lastly, we have watch, which is tsc-w. Same thing with Nodemon. It basically recompiles the code whenever there's changes. Alright, yeah, that should be it for now. Let's just create a folder called src. One more thing, we need to configure our tsconfig.json. So let's just create a file called tsconfig.json, and you can just paste in your preferred config. Alright, and then in include section, make sure to add environment.d.ts. I'll show you guys what I mean in a second, because we're going to use environmental variables. And if you want to get the source code, just go to the description. Once again, go to the description, click on GitHub, and just search for the file. And you can just copy it, this tsconfig.json. It's pretty basic. Alright, so now let's just create a file called environment.d.ts. So in here, we're going to type out our own environments. So let me just show you guys what I mean by that. So if I do process.env dot, as you can see, there is only an option tz, and in TypeScript you can actually take advantage of this and you can add your own options in here. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that right now. So let's just head back to environment.d.ts, declare global. We're going to check the Node.js namespace, so Node.js like this, and then we're going to extend the process.env interface, so we can just do this. Okay, so we're gonna have firstly our bot token, and then we're gonna have our guild ID. So this is gonna be the main guild ID. Environment, lastly environment, so we can know what environment we're currently in. So we can either be in dev environment, a production environment, or we can have a debug environment. Alright, and then we're just gonna have a empty export at the bottom to avoid any errors. Alright, so now if I do process.env dot, we can see that we have our own options now. Perfect. Alright, so we're going to start off by creating a client. So let me just go to source folder, create a new folder called structures. So this is basically where we're writing out classes, and then let me just create a file called Client.ts. Oops, what am I doing? Client.ts. Right. Okay, first we're gonna import client first quickly. Import client from Discord.js, and then we're just gonna do export class extended client extends client. So client is a class, and we're extending the class. All right. So now we can just type out our command structure and any relevant info. So let me just create a new folder called typings. Make sure it is in the source folder, and let's just create a command.ts. So this is where we type our types. All right. So we can just do import extended client. All right. And then we create a run options. So let me show you guys what I mean by that. So for a normal command, we're gonna have a name in the command. So name will be the command name. All right, we're gonna have a description. Okay, you don't need to do this. This is just me letting you visualize the command structure. All right, so this description, we can do any description, and then we're gonna have our run function. All right, so our run function will look something like this. If you watch my previous class commands video, you see that I'm using objects instead of this. Let me show you guys client interaction instead of this. All right, we can just do client interaction like this. Okay, this allows us to switch them, so you can do interaction client, and it will just work fine. All right, so this is our structure, and let's just build this structure out. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to define the options in here. So let me just do interface run options. All right, so in here we can have our client, extended client, interaction will be command interaction, and then we're gonna have args. So args is gonna be command interaction option resolver. So it's equivalent to interaction.options. All right, so we can just use the args for that. All right, so next we're gonna create our run function. So we're gonna write the types for this run function. So we're just gonna do type run function equals to options run options. So this is basically taking all of the run options. So this is what we're writing right now, and then we're gonna return any. All right, so we don't know what it's gonna return, so I'm just gonna write any for now. Okay, so lastly we're gonna create our command type. So we're gonna create this whole thing. So we're gonna just do export type. Make sure there's export because we're gonna use this in the other files. So export type command type equals to an object user permissions. So this is where you can add your own stuff. All right, so before that, I'm just gonna make a union with chat input application command data. So this is what Discord expects you to give whenever you create a command. So you can just do this. All right, so this includes the name. Let me just show you guys if I can see it. All right, as you can see here, we have a description, we have a type, we have options. Okay, if I go to the base, you can see that we have name and default permission. So it's basically giving us the basic things required to create a slash command. So in here, we can actually add our own types. So we can just do something like user permissions, permission resolvable, an array of permission resolvable, and then we can have our run function. Okay, let's say you also have a cooldown. All right, so you want to have a cooldown, you can just add the cooldown here. Number. All right, so this is how you do it. But in this case, I don't have a cooldown, so I'm just gonna remove that. All right, so yeah, let's just go back to the client folder, and we're just gonna do commands. Or we can just do public commands. I don't think that really matters. We can just do commands, and it's gonna be public. So commands is equals to a collection. So this is the type. Let me just quickly import collection from Discord.js. Collection. All right, the collection is gonna have a key of a string, and then the value will be a command type equals to new collection. and then we're just gonna call the constructor, and we're gonna use super. So basically what super does is just is basically accessing the constructor for the parent class. So we're extending client, that's why we're calling super. So whenever you use constructor, you need to use super if you are extending a class. Alright, so we need to pass in options for now, and we can just do intents 32767, which stands for every single intent, and then we can have a start function in our extended client. So start function, so this is how we can start our bot. Okay, I'm going to create a function called registerCommand. Let me just make the function asynchronous, so register modules. So whenever the bot is started, we want to log in the bot, so we can just do this.login process.env.bot token. Okay, we can log in the bot, and then we're also going to register all the modules. So basically what this function does, it's just going to register our commands, it's going to publish our commands, it's going to register our events. Alright, so we're just going to call this function as well, so this.register modules. Alright, so before that, I'm just going to quickly grab our environmental variables. So just go to your project, create a file called .env. Alright, and then in here, we're going to have the same structure as the declaration files. So we're going to have our bot token, our guild ID, and our environment. Right, so let me just quickly grab my bot token. Alright, so if you don't know how to create a bot application, you want to go to discord.com/developers, and you should see something like this. Click on new application, and it's going to prompt you to enter a name. Just enter any name you want, and then you should see something like this, and then you want to head on to bot. If you don't see this, just click on add a bot, just create a bot real quick, and just scroll down and enable 3 of these intents. Alright, once you're done with this, just click on copy and go back to your project. So you can just do bot token. Oops, what is that? Okay, so you're just going to paste in our bot token. Next, we're going to paste in our guild ID. So this is going to be the main guild ID. So let me just quickly grab the guild ID, copy ID, go back to Visual Code, and then lastly, we're going to be our environment. It's not really important right now, so I'm just going to make it debug for now. Alright, I'll talk more about this later on this video. Alright, so we can start registering our commands. So before that, we actually need to do something. So you're going to quickly import glob from glob, and import promisefy from util. Alright, and we're going to make the glob a promise, so we can just do glob promise equals to promisefy glob. Alright, so now in register modules, we can create our module. Let me just close this because we're not going to use this for now. Alright, so register modules. We can just do commands, so we can know that this is where we register the commands. And then first, we're just going to create an empty array, so /commands equals to an array. You can also write the type for this. If I hover over this, we can see that this type is currently any. So we can write the type, so we can just do, this is going to consist of application, an array of application command data, resolvable array. Perfect. Now we can have our file paths. So command files equals to await glob promise, their name, and then we're going to exit the directory. Alright, so let me just explain that real quick. So we're currently in this structures. We're going to exit a directory, which leads us to this source directory, and we're going to go into the commands directory. So let me just create a commands folder real quick. Alright, so we're going to go into this directory. Alright, so commands, and in our commands folder, we're going to have subfolders like info, and we're going to have a ping.js, or ts I mean. Alright, so in order to access these commands, we can just make the category as any category, and then in that category must either have .ts or .js files. Alright, make sure there's no spaces in here, or else it's just going to take that in account. So this basically returns an array of file paths, and we can also console log that if you want. So you can just do console.log command files, to see that to visualize the file paths. Alright, so this returns a string array, and then we can loop over that. So we can just do command files, not for each. Okay, for each of the file path, we're gonna import it, and then we're gonna register the command. Alright, so I'm just gonna create a function to import the files. So async import file is gonna require a file path, which is gonna be a string. And then here, we're just gonna return away import, and then we're gonna pass in the file path, and then we want to access the default export. Okay, so we can do that by doing .default. Perfect. Alright, so now we can just do const command equals to await this.import file, and we're gonna pass in the file path. So this basically gives us the command. So let's say we exported like an object with name of ping, and then the run function, okay, is gonna be in here. Alright, so this shouldn't be in index.js. I meant to put this in Client.ts, but it doesn't really matter for now. Right, so if I do command dot, you can see here there is no options for me, and if I hover over this, it's just gonna give us a type of any. To add types, alright, we can just do colon command type. So this tells us that this is a command, and now when I do command dot, you see that we have the types now. Perfect. Alright, so if there is no command name, we're just gonna return. So basically, if the command doesn't have a name, we're just gonna ignore the command. And if it does have the name, we're just gonna do this.commands.set command name as the key, and then command as the command. Alright, so this matches up with this. So you can see here collection string command type. This is a collection of string. So command name is a string, and command is a command type. Alright, so just make sure it matches. Okay, lastly, we're gonna push the /commands. So /commands.push command. Alright, so now we have this /commands array consists of all of these /commands, which needs to be published to Discord. Alright, so we're just gonna create a separate function to publish commands. Let's just quickly do that. Async what should I call this? I think I could call this register commands. Okay, so this is going to consist of an object of guild ID. Oh, before that, we can actually write definitions for that as well. So let me just remove that for now. We're going to create a new file in typings called Client.ts. So this basically tells us what interfaces that is going to be used in client. We can just write it in here. So we want to write the options for this function. So we can just name this interface register commands options. Alright, so we're gonna have a guild ID, an optional guild ID. So this, if the person want to register a command, the commands to a guild, we can just do this, or else it's gonna register globally. And then lastly, we need our commands, which is gonna be application, an array of application command data resolvable. Alright, yeah, this should be good. Alright, so now we can just do options, register command options, and we can actually destructure this options. So we can just do like commands and guild ID. So this is how we can get access to commands and guild ID. So now if we have a guild ID, it means that we only want to register the commands to a single guild, or else if there is no guild ID, it means that we want to register the commands globally. Alright, so let me just do for the guild ID first. So this.guilds.catch.get. Alright, we're gonna get the guild ID, and then we're gonna set the commands like this. Alright, and then we can just do a console.log saying that we registered to a guild. So you can just do registering commands to, and we can pass in the guild ID like this. Alright, so if we want to register globally, you can just do this.application .commands.set commands, and then we can just do console.log registering global commands. That is all for the commands. Now let's move on to events. For events, we're going to create a new structure. So event in here, we're going to export a class. So export class event, and we're just going to use some generic magic. So key extends key of client events. Alright, so if you don't know what key is, it's basically like interaction create, message create of the event name. So let me just open up the documentation for you to visualize it. So discord.js.org. Let me just quickly go to the client definition if I can find it. And here are all of the events. Alright, so this is all of the keys that we expect. Okay, you can also see it by going to the definition. Okay, we can have API response, good member remove, blah blah blah. So everything with the blue right now is the key. Alright, so in our function, in our class, we can have a constructor. Okay, the constructor consists of a event. So this is going to be the event name, which is going to be key. Alright, and then we can have a run function. So we're just going to do ..args client event key, and then it's just going to return any. So the reason that we're doing this is because, let me just remove the semicolon. We're actually getting the arguments needed. So let me just go to the definition again. Alright, so let's say we have application command create. Alright, so it's just going to give us command. So this command is going to be in args. Alright, you'll be able to see this later on this video. Now we can just head back to client and let's just continue creating our event handler. So event, just to indicate where event starts. So same thing, we can just copy this line. Alright, and let's just change some things. Event files, and then we're going to change the commands to events. Let me just create a folder called events quickly. New folder, events, and then let me just remove this because we don't have subfolders in our event. And then we're just basically going to do every file in events that ends with ts or .js. Alright, so next thing, we're just going to loop over the files. So event files dot for each async file path. Once again, we're just going to import the file. So const event equals to await import file. Alright, so we're going to import the file path. Once again, this is any, so you can just write our own types by doing event. Make sure it's coming from event. And then we want to do key of client events. Okay, so now we can have our event type. So I do event dot, you can see that we have the types. Right, so we can just do this dot on event dot event. So this is the key, and then once it's on, we can just run this callback function. So event dot run. Once again, if this event is emitted, it's just going to run this callback function. Alright, that should be it for the client definition. Now let's just create the bot and start the bot. Alright, so we can just import our extended client. And we can just create a new client. So export const client. The reason I'm exporting this is because we're going to use client in other of our files. That's why I'm exporting it. Alright, so we're just going to create a new extended client. And then to start the bot, we can just do client.start. One more thing, in order to use environmental variables, we need to require .env first, and then use the config method. And let's just start the bot. Alright, to start the bot, we can just run npm run start. So you're going to use the TS node for now, npm run start to start the bot. Okay, now we can see that we have a single command, ping.ts, but unfortunately there is no command name, so this command will not be registered. So if I head on to Discord, you see that the bot is currently online. As you can see here, the bot is online, which is perfect. So now we can continue creating our TypeScript handler. Alright, let's just create a class for command. So let me just quickly do that. Command.ts. Let me just make this a singular. Oh my god, what am I doing? Okay, so command, and we're just gonna export a class. So export class command, and then we're gonna have a constructor once again, options, or we can just call this command options, and it's just gonna require the command type. Alright, so it's coming from typing/commands, and then once we get that, we're just gonna do object.assign this with command options. Perfect. Alright, so let's just create our ready event. So let's just go to events, create a file called ready.ts, and in here we can just do export default new class, new event. Alright, so our event name, oops, what am I doing? Event name is gonna be ready because we're accessing the ready event, and then we can have our client. So we can just do console.log bot is online, and let's just start the bot to see if this logs out. Oops, what am I doing? npm run start. Alright, as you can see here, we can see that the bot is online, and we know that this code is actually working. So let me just quickly do something. So we can just do npm run start :dev to make it concurrently run. So whenever we make a change, it's just going to rerun the file. Alright, so now let's just test creating a command. So let me just go to commands ping.ts. Let's just create a simple ping command. So we can just do that same thing, export default new command. Okay, and then in command we can have our name, which is going to be a ping command. Description, we can just do shows client ping or something like this, or we can just make a simple command like replies with pong. Alright, we have our run function. We're just going to need interaction for now. Alright, so if I remove this and I do control space, we can see that we get our options. Just click on interaction because I'm just going to need interaction, and we can just do interaction or follow up. Interaction follow up content will be pong, so let me just do pong. Alright, so let me just go back to the client declaration, and let's just see if we get the command. So console.log command. Let me just remove this console log. Alright, so let me see if we get the command. Alright, as you see here, we get our command object, but unfortunately we can't use the command for now because we haven't created the interactionCreate event yet. So we can just create that event right now. So let me just create a new file called interactionCreate.ts. Okay, once again, we're just gonna export default new event coming from structure/event. This event is going to be named interactionCreate, and then we can have interaction in here. Alright, and then if I do interaction dot, you can see we can get all of the autocomplete and all of the options, and then we can just do we can just indicate chart input commands, aka it's the /commands, and then we can just do if interaction dot is command. So this basically is a boolean to tell us whether this is a /command. So if it is, we can just do await interaction.defer reply. Let's just make this function asynchronous, so you can use await in here, defer reply, and then dot catch. Okay, let's just remove the dot catch for now. Alright, and then we can just do const command equals to client.commands .get interaction.command name. Let's just quickly import the client. So let me just do import client. So this client is coming from the index file, this file in here. So now if I do client dot, you can see that we can get all of the autocomplete. Alright, so if there is no command, we can just do return interaction dot follow up. We can just do you have used a non-existent command. Alright, And then if the command exists, we can just run the command. So command.run is going to take in an object. So this is the run options. And we're going to have the args, which is going to be interaction, the options, client, oops, what am I doing? Client, and lastly interaction. Alright, the args is showing us an error. So to fix this, we can just cast a type. We can just do as command interaction option resolver. Alright, so now the error is gone. Perfect. One more thing we can do is we can actually extend the interaction. So if I do interaction .member in the ping.ts file, we can see that we only have limited options because it's not a guild member. It's either a guild member or a API interaction guild member. To fix this, we can just create, we can just go to the command.ts in typings, and we can create our own interaction. So in here, we can just do export extend interface extended interaction, and we're gonna extend from command interaction. Alright, and we're just gonna make the member a guild member. Alright, so in here, instead of interaction, we're gonna use extended interaction. Alright, and then yeah, that should be good to go. So now if I do dot, we can see that we get all of the options. Okay, so you can see that interactionCreate is now throwing an error. So to fix this, we can just make it, we can just cast a type to interaction. So interaction as extended interaction. Right, so now the error is gone. Perfect. So let me just remove this. And let's just try this out. Let's just try this command out. So let me just go to Discord/ping. That's gonna reply with Pong. So if I change this to Pong tree, interaction of follow up, Pong tree, and let's just wait for it to restart. As you see here, whenever I save the file, it's just gonna restart the bot, and then we can just do /ping. Okay, we can get Pong tree. The last thing I want to touch on is basically compiling the code. So let's just quickly compile the code by doing yarn npm run build. Let me just expand this. Okay, so basically we just run npm run build. Alright, it's just going to use the TSC method and create a dist folder. Alright, you can see that this is basically compiled code. Okay, we can go to commands, ping.js. It's like really messy, I understand. And to run this code, okay, we can just do npm run start prod. Okay, it's going to run the bot. Or another way, you can just run node this index.js, and it's going to run the bot just fine. So this is way faster compared to using TS Node, and it's not advisable to use TS Node if you're using a host. So make sure to compile your code when using hosts like Heroku or whatever it is. This should conclude today's video on how to create a Discord bot using TypeScript. If you have any questions or you want to suggest a new video, feel free to join the Discord server. The links will be in the description. Other than that, have a nice day. See you in the next video. Bye!